You may be in your schoolyard playing when the signal comes. That signal means to stop whatever you are doing and get to the nearest safe place fast.
What if Russia truly went to war with the United States? No more proxy wars, no more sanctions, just all-out war. While the quote we just mentioned has never truly been confirmed, the sentiment still rings true as ever, and it's important to understand the reasons why the United States citizen enjoys living in the safest country on the globe. As we watch the mission Wolverines play through from Modern Warfare 2 in the background, we can reasonably say that this scenario is extremely unlikely under the present culture and political climate in the US, at least for now. But instead, I want you to see some kind of representation as to what America could look like if we neglect the values and structure of our government that are the specific reasons for our safety and security here at home. The reasons aren't just luck, they're not just geographical. There are specific reasons as to why America stands above the rest when it comes to safety and security in the entire globe, and if we don't recognize and continue to promote those things that make America great, she will see the same fate as many great empires throughout history. And our children and children's children could never know the feeling of safety in one's own home or country. This is why I want you to listen to the end of this video for sure. So let's take a look at what makes America different and why those reasons have led to the US military being the largest in the world. American exceptionalism that focuses on capitalism, private gun ownership, energy dependence, and a massive stockpile of nuclear warheads. To neglect these areas is to undermine the safety of the American people and peace throughout the globe. Now today we're going to look at if Russia could feasibly invade the United States, what challenges would lie in their way to go to war with the United States, and ultimately what the U.S. has done to foster safety and security for her people. The United States has far more purchasing power and has flatly outspent Russia when it comes to military funding. Capitalism simply outproduces communistic governments and has proven in the past to overcome vast armies simply through spending the enemy into poverty and desolation. Even if put under a heavy strain, American capitalism, even though oftentimes weighed down by socialist government programs from the left, can and will outproduce, out-innovate, and outspend any rival nation with industries controlled by wasteful government power. America spent $750 billion in 2020 on their military budget, with Russia spending a fraction of that at $66.3 million in the same year. Now, the next reason is private gun ownership. Private gun ownership and the Second Amendment are another staple of America's success and the backbone of America's security, because when all else fails, when the planes are shot down, the ships are sunk, and the tanks destroyed, any invading force would still have to contend with the largest standing military force in the world, the American people. This gives powers like Russia pause to even try and do anything against our military, because what would be the use? Even if you do defeat the United States military, which is highly unlikely, you still have to contend with the American people. Besides, if it was about to go down like it's being shown here in Modern Warfare 2, do you really think any red-blooded Americans just gonna roll over and let some twinkle-toed communists occupy their favorite burger joint? No, says I. Hey, get out of my refrigerator!
Alright, HQ, Bud Light has been secured, over.
And it's not just the fact that we have the Second Amendment, nor that, we have it written down somewhere on some old piece of parchment, but the fact that the founding fathers of America were among the wisest and learned men of their day to recognize the fact that all people have a natural right to bear arms, whether that be a protection against rapists and criminals, a runaway tyrannical government, or, in this instance, the security against an invading force. Now, we're going to talk a lot about the logistics of invading the U.S. mainland, but I want you to stick around, as we're going to be discussing more and more controversial material the longer you watch this video, if you're not a liberal snowflake and have been triggered already. But I want your opinions in the comments section below. I really do. If you want to disagree with me rudely, we'll make fun of you. And if you really want a true discussion, I'm definitely up for that too. As of 2020, there are over 400 million firearms in the United States. Over 98% of those firearms belong to the civilian population. 81.4 4 million Americans own firearms, and that number continues to grow by leaps and bounds every year. And that basically means that for every gun owner averages about 5 guns that they have in their home. In fact, 1/3 of all the civilian guns in the entire world are owned by Americans. And yet, America has some of the lowest violent crime rates in the world, especially when you remove the top 5 cities with near authoritarian gun control measures from those counts. I know a bunch of leftist liberals are going to lose their heads and say, no, you've got the highest gun crime statistics in the world. But we actually have guns here, so naturally you do have more gun crime. However, our violent crime rate is what you really want to look at. If you're really looking at the entire safety of the people, the violent crime rate is lower because criminals know that we have guns and they might get their ass shot if they try to rob a 7-Eleven or the little old lady down the street. So, that being said, let's break down first what kind of challenges would lie in Russia's way if they decided this insane thing to do, outside of having to contend with a massive force of an armed populace with a home field advantage. Not only would the Russian military face an impossible task of confronting the largest standing army in the world, the American people, but it would also face the logistical nightmare of actually getting their troops to the mainland. As far as numbers go, America's standing military amounts to 1.4 million active service members compared to Russia's 1,013,000 active members. When it comes to reservists, now that is another story. Russia does indeed have the United States beat out when it comes to reservists, boasting a whopping 2 million people who can be forcibly called up at any moment. While America only has 860,000 reservists on hand, the U.S. still holds a population advantage and has a larger pool of citizens to pull from if needed. Also, a major factor comes into play when noting that the number of 2 million is a constantly revolving door of males 18 to 27 years old who don't have a choice if they want to serve or not. They must serve at least 1 year in the Russian army, which has a heavy impact on morale. While sure, some enlisted service members on the U.S. flag sign up for just a paycheck, a majority of soldiers do so from a place of pride and duty. And even if not, the U.S. Reserve remain trained and ready and are battle ready at all times. They are trained with the most up-to-date equipment and have all the equipment as the regular standing military. This can make the difference on any battlefield. At the same time, Russia's tank fleet seemingly outnumbers the U.S.'s M1A1 Abrams fleet by 2-1, with Russia owning nearly 13,000 to the United States 6,500. However, a sizable number of those are not the renowned and the very capable T-14 armadas that Russia has touted as the answer to America's M1A1, but instead, many of those tanks are left over from the Cold War. Not only are they woefully obsolete on a modern battlefield, but many probably haven't been taken out of the garage for a very long time and would require significant refurbishing and work to even get onto a battlefield. And with the technology for tank design moving so rapidly, many of these could not come close to going toe-to-toe with the deadly M1A1 Abrams. They'd be used more against light armory and infantry when they could. All in all, only about 2,000 Russian tanks are actually considered combat ready. And as it stands, Russia only has about 350 T-90 tanks and just 20 T-14 armadas. Even though these are badass killing machines, American forces solely rely on the M1A1 to spread freedom, no obsolete clunkers in this cavalry. Even if the majority of Russia's tanks were T-90s and T-14 armadas, there's no way the former Soviet Union could come close to effectively deploying that force on American soil. Russia's current ability to have a presence across the globe is severely hampered by their small carrier fleet. And not only that, but Russia also suffers a severe geographical challenge of having all their northern ports frozen over during the winter months, only allowing access to one southern port year-round. Their military is crafted around the geological and logistical challenges of their country, which is why they are far better outfitted to lay waste to surrounding countries and fighting the United States through proxy wars. A face-off on the U.S.'s home turf or any other advantageous field of play such as the sea or air would lead to a disaster for the Russian military. While Russia continues to struggle to produce a proper rival to America's air superiority, the U.S. military is constantly expanding their fleet of F-35 fighter jets and production of more supercarriers. The U.S. military has a significant advantage over Russia both in the air and at sea, which leaves Russia with just one path to power, and that is really invading their neighboring countries and affecting the United States through, like I said, economic hardships and proxy wars. That's why it's so important that America remain independent and self-sufficient, especially when it comes to, here's our other reason, energy production. You want reliable and stable energy? We can't shut down our pipelines like Joe Biden has and continue to pay Russia for oil. Just doesn't make any sense. Biden says he stands in a position of power towards Putin, but yet he shuts down our nation's oil pipelines just to buy more from Putin. Doesn't sound like a position of power to me. Does it to you? It sounds like dependency. Recently, Biden touted that he collaborated with European countries to open up 60 million barrels of oil reserves across the globe. Well, you want to know how long that would last America? 3 days. Just 3 days, Mr. Biden. In 2016, America became a net exporter of oil and energy resources, which means we were shipping out more oil than we were taking in. But thanks to leftist control of our government, that's no longer the case. And instead of reducing the use of oil, we just keep buying more from Russia and other countries, propping up their economies while we pay $3.50 at the pump, or more if you're from a different state from me. With some saying that we could have up to $7 a gallon before the end of the year 2022. All of this is leading up to the largest and the most embarrassing "I told you so" we've seen in modern times. You want to stop the death of Ukrainians and possibly the start of World War III? Stop relying on leftist propaganda to indoctrinate a society into funding death at the hands of Putin. That's right. Explore drilling in Alaska. Allow industry to explore some of the safest methods of energy production, also known as fracking. Don't shut down pipelines to act like you're just saving the planet when really you're just shifting all those dollars to totalitarian regimes that could end up in total economic collapses across the globe. You know all that oil that America could be sending to countries like, I don't know, Ukraine? Yeah, well, we can't do that anymore. We're too busy buying it from Russia. You want global security? Well, all the Democrats for years have pushed for getting rid of our nukes to appease dictators like Putin. But guess what? Ukraine removed their nuclear program just a few years ago at the guarantee from NATO that their borders would be safe. All the guarantees in the world. But not more than just a few years later, their people are being killed at the hands of an evil empire. And it's because they gave up their nukes. You want safety? This is why we have nuclear warheads. This is why we shouldn't let hippies and leftists run our foreign policies. But hey, at least we got a transgender admiral. That ought to leave Putin quivering in his boots, right? This is pathetic. No. More nukes, fewer trannies, and we'll be a safer nation. I guarantee it. And since we've been right about those two things, let's look at the people of Ukraine. The government of Ukraine had to structure the logistics of dispersing AK-47 rifles to their citizens, many who had very little training with firearms. Is there any better argument as to why we have a right to bear arms in the United States? Is there any better proof than this right here? Any better proof that the headlines than the headlines that scroll across every single news nation in the country right now? Or do we still need to follow Britain's nightmare of gun control and escalating crime rates to the point that grown-ass men, grown-ass adults need a license to own pointy objects? It's absolutely insane. Many leftists, include this imbecile at the White House, beg the question, do you really think you're going to fight off tanks with AR-15 rifles?
You want to think you need to have weapons to take on the government. You need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
Well, no. But just look at Afghanistan. Look at Iraq. Look at where no nation has been able to gain a foothold, both Russia and the U.S., for centuries. The tactical nightmare of clearing out a country with an armed citizenry is nigh on impossible. It would be for an invading force, and it would be for a tyrannical government. And that's why gun owners are so militant about protecting the Second Amendment in America. So as we get close to the end of this, it is imperative that we take time to understand exactly why America is in a position of power like she is, why we enjoy the safety of not having to worry about an invading force, and why it's important we dump the leftist narratives that end up undercutting that power and security at every single opportunity. Because it might make you feel good, warm, and cozy inside, but when shit starts popping off like it has been lately, you start seeing the real truth, and you want to start clamoring for some of the that crazy right-wing conspiracy theory stuff, right? I want you to understand, our founders were very wise. They had just finished up using a nation of farmers, blacksmiths, and merchants to fight off the most powerful military force in the world at that time. And they knew the circumstances and struggles it took to break free of that tyranny. We must take note if we wish to see the continued success of our nation, and all this lies at the idea of a well-armed populace, a militia. The idea that men have a natural right to bear arms, not given from government, but from a power far higher and mightier than any man-made institution. This is the backbone of safety and security in America. And these are also the same reasons we see that Putin has attacked. He knows Joe Biden has weakened America. He knows that we are dependent on him for oil. He knows that Biden is likely to attempt instilling gun control in America, and he has already attempted to do so. And Putin knows that under Biden, he is much more likely to swindle America out of a significant number of nuclear warheads should he go toe-to-toe with Sleepy Joe at the bargaining table. So I do hope that you've enjoyed my rant on what we're seeing in the news, the headlines, all of our social media feeds. Just something that's been on my chest for a little while, and just wanted to put everything together and kind of articulate the argument for American exceptionalism, the need for capitalism, private gun ownership, nuclear warheads, all that good stuff. And you know, when I started this channel, I really wanted to make it a place where conservative gamers could have fun, vibe out, but most importantly, discuss important issues when the time came for it, and the time is now. So if you believe in that mission, please click the subscribe button below and turn on notifications to keep up with your favorite all-American freedom-loving gamer, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. This is Hitchy Good, happy gaming, and God bless.